Okay, good afternoon to everybody. We will continue with our discussion what is religion. In my last discussion, I tried to explain to you mainly two things. One is different uses of the word religion, or in other words, what do we mean when we say something is a religion? So we found that when we use this term today, we mean a system of beliefs, doctrines and teachings, a set of practices, rites and rituals, and also an organization with hierarchical structure of clergy, sacred text, and objects. Now, one issue we discussed was whether Buddhism is a religion in this sense. Now, the answer we developed was actually in some sense, in the sense of believing in power that is beyond ourselves, or believing in Creator God, believing in some kind of superhuman God or personality. Buddhism is not a religion. But on the other hand, if you look at these four different ways of using religion, we know that Buddhism is also another religion, right? Now, very often, people discuss this question, what is Buddhism? So some people say Buddhism is a religion, some people say Buddhism is a philosophy, some people say Buddhism is not a religion but a way of life. That type of debate, that type of discussion is happening among scholars. Very often in journals you see articles, people write, oh, Buddhism is not religion, or Buddhism is a philosophy, or Buddhism is a way of life, and so on. Actually, when you look carefully, you can see that in some sense, you can't call Buddhism a religion, right? Because if you look at the Buddha, Buddha is not a god. And also, Buddha is not a prophet of God. Like if you take Muhammad, Muhammad is supposed to be a prophet, the speaker on behalf of God on earth. And Jesus is considered to be the Son of God, right? And Judaism, Moses is the one who got the commandments from God. So like that, there are people in between God and human beings. Buddha was not like that, and he was not a god. So in this sense, we can't say that the Buddhism started from the Buddha is a religion from that sense. However, on the other hand, when we look at the term, how this word is used today, although Buddhism is not a religion in that original sense, we have to say Buddhism is a religion. Now, if you look at these four aspects, you know that all these four aspects are there in Buddhism, right? In Buddhism, we have a system of beliefs. System of belief can be different from any religion to any, religion to religion. But in Buddhism, we believe that samsara is long, nirvana is attainable, life is dukkha. Now, these are the system of Buddhist belief. So, there is a system of belief. And then doctrines and teachings, then we have Paticca Four Noble Truths, and so on and so forth. And set of practices, rites and rituals. Now, also we have these things. We have, as I said the last week, Katina ceremony, observing Vassa, many things like that. Different countries, different practices. And then organization with hierarchical structure. We also have Buddhism as organization. In many Buddhist countries, there is in the government, there is a Buddhist, the Department for Buddhist Affairs. And there are chapters or nikayas. There are Mahanayaka Theras, Thera Mandala, like in Myanmar. So, you have a hierarchical thing, a structural thing, from highest to the ordinary lowest Samanera. So now, looking from this point of view, we can say that Buddhism is a religion, okay? And now there is another aspect. Now, although from the very beginning Buddha was not a god, Buddha never considered himself to be God. What is today? Today there are some Buddhists who consider to be Buddha like God. Then what? So, although originally Buddhism started as a movement of the religious people, subsequently, gradually, people develop certain belief. Now today, the certain Mahayana sects are there in China, Japan, and also Korea, and other places wherever they live. Sukhavati Vyuha, the Buddha as everlastingly living in Sukhavati Vyuha heaven, Pure Land Buddhism. Now, according to Theravada belief, we know that Buddha has attained Parinirvana. When the Buddha attained Parinirvana, or Arahant attained Parinirvana, in the Ratana Sutta it is described, Nibbanti Dhira Yathayang Padipu. Like a lamp extinguishes, goes out. Arahants are no more. So when the Buddha attains Parinirvana, Buddha is no more. But then on the other hand, some Buddhists believe Buddha to be in Sukhavati Vyuha. So you can see it started in one manner, but by today, many different people have many different views. Theravada Buddhism is fairly close to the origin. I'm not saying these others are wrong or bad, but I'm saying is, over the time, things have changed. So, even Buddhism has acquired certain things that you find in other religions. And also Buddha is not God. So therefore Buddha cannot help us. But on the other hand, we in Buddhist countries, we believe in many different gods who can help us. So in the religion like monotheistic religion, there is one God who can do everything. But in Buddhism, we don't believe that, there are gods who can create us, create the universe. But on the other hand, we believe that there can be gods who can help us, who can protect us. Now, what about that? So, although we don't believe in one God in capital G, we believe in many gods. We believe that many gods exist who can help us. So, when we look at religion today, although according to the origin, according to the beginning, according to the books, it is one thing. But however, what we find today is, somewhat different. And in the Buddhist countries, we have this concept of Buddhu Sarana in Sri Lanka. Or like we say Buddha Sarana. Sarana means protection. In Sri Lanka, in many public vehicles, buses, you find Buddhu Sarana. So the protection of the Buddha. Although we don't believe Buddha as a God, people believe that, when you recite the name of the Buddha, or, there is some protection. So what I'm trying to tell you is this. Buddhism started in one manner. However, by now, or in different periods in the history in different places, Buddhism has developed to be a very popular religion. So rites, rituals, puja, vandana, all these things are there. So, we have to be really, be realistically understanding. So when you go to different countries, you can see people doing in different things. If you go to Tibet Buddhist area, Bhutan, Sikkim, that country, that type of countries, you see these round objects, and then people just rotate them. So when you climb a mountain to go to a Buddhist place, you see this drums-like thing from the very beginning. So people, when they go, they just rotate it. So the number of time it rotates, people consider it to be good. So, you rotate all these drums representing Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. But that practice is not in the Theravada tradition. We don't do that. But in the Tibetan Buddhism, they do it. So, in different rites and rituals. So, in other words, although in some sense we cannot say Buddhism is a religion, there are several other senses according to which we can call Buddhism is a religion like any other religion, okay? Because gradually people have made Buddhism, that type of thing. Now, sometimes you may have heard about the story of the object called Ananda Bodhi. Ananda Bodhi, the Bodhi tree, which was given the name of Venerable Ananda. Now, if we believe the story, according to this story, this concept of Ananda Bodhi started during the time of the Buddha. The story is that when the Buddha was not in the Jetavana Vihara, people came and left complaining there is not Buddha. So then the story says that they needed an object. So representing the Buddha so that people can pay homage. But it's not very likely that it started during the time of the Buddha. But idea is that when the Bodhi Puja became very, very popular, maybe they created the story to put it to the Buddha's time. But if we believe the story, then Bodhi Puja started during the time of the Buddha. Now, on the one hand, we think that Buddha was never that type of person to be worshipped like God. But on the other hand, there are stories to the effect that, the Bodhi Puja, Bodhi Vandana started during the time of the Buddha himself. We don't know for sure, but you can see that rites and rituals, practices starting from very early period. Buddha taught the Dhamma in order to attain Nirvana. However, very ordinary people in the society, they don't understand that deep Dhamma. They are not in a position of mind or psychological disposition to leave home and become monks and nuns and attain Nirvana. So that type of ordinary people needed something much less, not like deep Dhamma. They needed something more simple and something practical. So, you can see that although, Buddha wanted to teach Nirvana and, path, but of course Buddha knew that everybody can't follow it. Everybody can't follow it in the same manner, to the same degree, to the same intensity. So people needed different practices. So in a way you can see from very early period within Buddhism, there are these rites and rituals and practices arising. So what I'm trying to tell you is, in one sense, of course, we cannot say Buddhism is a religion, but in another sense, we can say Buddhism is a religion like any other religion, because that is how the society has it. So these are some of the characteristics of any religion. So Buddhism also shares these things. Okay. Now this is basically what we tried to discuss in our last session. Today I would like to look at with you another aspect of religion. Basically, of course, we looked at the types of religion: theistic, non-theistic, theistic, monistic, polytheism, henotheism and monotheism, axial religion and non-axial religion. I'm not going to describe these things again, but these are different types of religion. When you look at the religions in the world, then particularly the axial religion and the non-axial religion is basically the primitive religion, very early, where concept of salvation, concept of liberation or freedom is not found. That is non-axial religion. Axial religion is religion that is advanced form of religion. Today when we talk about Christianity, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism and Buddhism, Jainism, we are talking about axial religion. So those categories. And then origin of religion. It's important thing to see how this particular thing called religion, this kind of belief, originated in the world. Now, when we talk about the origin of religion, we can look at this problem from two different the levels. One is to look at religion as a very primitive thing in the very primitive society. So, how religion started in the primitive society? How religion started in the world for the first time, you know, something like that. So, we can put the question, how did religion originate in the primitive society? When we ask this question, we are asking how did religion originate in the primitive society? We are talking about this, what I call non-axial religion, you know, very basic primitive religion. How did this start? If we believe in evolution of things, how did really religion start? What became religion? What has become religion today? How did it start from the very beginning? So, very early origin of religion. How did it start? Why religion was needed? Okay. Now, there are many views about it, particularly anthropologists who study human societies, ethnologists, also sociologists have studied this problem. How did religion start in the world? Now, in order to see this, you know, we can always look at, we can look at some of the ideas, origin of religion. Now, if we just start from Buddhism itself, here I have a quotation from Dhammapada. Bahum ve saranang yanti pabbhatani vananicha arama rukka chetyani manussa bhayatajjita. Bahum ve saranang yanti pabbhatani vananicha. Many people take refuge in pabbhatani vanani, in the mountains and forests. Pabbhatani vanani. Arama rukka chetyani. Arama means religious places. Rukka, certain trees. Chaityani means monuments built for certain gods or, you know, certain religious objects. So, Aram Rukka Chetyani Manussa Bhaya Tajjita. Why? Manussa Bhaya Tajjita, they are threatened by fear. So, in this Dhammapada statement, Buddha says that this type of beliefs, practices started because people were threatened by fear. Bhaya Tajjita. Now, Bhaya, fear. Why fear? Fear is basically at a very early stage of human evolution. Fear arose in people basically because the people could not understand what is happening. People could not understand what is happening. People could not understand what is happening in the nature. Okay? So, they were trying to understand, but they could not understand. Now, I think last week discussion also I mentioned, like if you look at fire, how fire started, that is people's experiences, you know, when in the forest, when the trees, branches touch each other in the wind, you know, suddenly fire starts. Now then fire burns. Fire burns whole long, large areas. So people get scared. How people don't know what fire is. They don't know how fire started. But when they see fire, when they know that fire is destructive, then they become scared of it. So this response was fear to the fire. But then it may have taken long years for these people to tame fire and make use of fire. Then of course they knew how to cook with fire, all sorts of manner. But basic fascination with fire is something you see in many religions. And particularly if you look at Hindu religion even today, we can see that Agni is a god. Agni is a god. Agni is fire. So Agni is a god. Now it is very interesting. Today, of course, any ordinary person knows, how fire comes and how to control the fire. Ordinary people don't consider it to be God. But nevertheless, you can see that certain beliefs coming from tradition, long time, you can see this phenomenon has been considered to be God. Now, some of these beliefs, and you take also sun and moon, and also the stars, these things at some point people didn't understand. So, sun was considered to be God, moon was considered to be God, and also the stars were considered to be gods. But today we know so much about these things. We know so much about these things, but still people consider these things to be gods. So in the ancient Greek tradition also you see that there were sun worshippers. Like we read that Heraclitus and his followers worshipped sun. And in the Indian tradition we see fire god still today. And it's very interesting. In the Indian religious tradition, Vedic tradition, fire and burning things in the fire is one of the key major religious rituals. Last year I remember I went to Uttar Pradesh where there was a huge Hindu religious festival. One of the main items was, they had this fire, and then Brahmins were sitting around and chanting Vedas, and also, the pouring ghee and other things to the fire. So the maintaining fire without break, and also feeding ghee and all these things into fire. So you have to see it to believe. And also in the same manner, in certain Red Indian traditions I have seen. So the fire is a sacred object. So sometime when some kind of festivities or function going on, they have fire and then they keep the fire non-stop. So whole group of people sitting around and always, putting firewood and, other things, keeping it going on. So you can see in a manner, from these things you can see how through non-understanding of natural objects, non-understanding of natural phenomena, people develop some kind of fear. So out of that fear, you start worshipping these objects, okay? So this is a very good example. In last week, I discussed with you how the belief in God started in Indian tradition. So it started with what we call belief in many gods. However, before the belief in many gods started, there were stages like representing natural objects to be considered to be human beings. So anthropomorphism, that means attributing human characteristics to ordinary objects. And then next step is to consider these things as divine. So first you consider these things as objects, and then sacred objects, and then human beings, and then gods. Now you can see this evolution in the Vedic tradition. You have Ushas. Ushas means dawn, early morning, Ushas. Now Ushas is considered to be a goddess, female god. And in the Vedic hymns, you see Ushas being described as a young, beautiful lady. Now, you know, but then what is it? It is the dawning of the sun. Early morning, when sun rises, you know, it is beautiful. Flowers bloom, and you know, the environment is beautiful. So they thought, you know, this is Ushas, and Ushas to be a goddess. So you see how gradually this kind of beliefs starting in society. So at some point there were so many different gods in the Indian tradition. Now interestingly, you know, this is happening not only in India, this is happening all over the world, because human beings had the same type of psychology. Now here the interesting thing is this concept arises from non-understanding, lack of understanding, right? And then you consider certain things to be sacred. Now if you go to India, actually you might not see in very much in this society, but if you go to India, you can see that. Now because of the story of Hanuman, monkey is a sacred animal. And also because of the stories of God, the cow is a sacred animal. And also bull is considered to be a sacred animal. So I have seen in some certain devalayas, there is the statue of a bull. So people go and, you know, people wash the statue and take the water and drink, and go to this statue and kiss it. So, you know, like that, you see various types of things. So all these things come due to lack of understanding. Now if you look at, say, Burmese society also, in many other societies, where people believe in the dead people. Now death is another mystery in life. Somebody is living, working, talking, and suddenly that person stops everything. Now how can you understand it? Okay? So they think that, okay, that person, there was a person, he or she left the body, and he or she is living in a different manner. So, you know, because you don't understand, this change is ununderstandable. So you consider to be that person to be some kind of spirit, some kind of being, not necessarily a god, but, you know, living in over there, dark, outside. So, you know, in order to make them happy, you do certain things. So in societies, in India you find it in one manner, in countries like ours you find it, you know, other manner. So things associated with dead people. So in anthropologists sometimes talk about what is called animism. Animism means basically belief in dead people. We believe that, you know, they exist in, you know, certain manner, and then we also believe that, you know, they can do harm to you unless you keep them happy. So, you know, you make various types of offerings. So these things. And in our discussion of Hindu tradition, we saw that starting it from polytheism finally, going into many types of gods, and then finally coming into monotheism, one God, and also up to monism. But basically here what we are trying to understand is how this in the early societies, you know, these things started. Now one important thing in that sense is we can see Manusa Bhaya Tajita. So psychological reason is fear. Behind fear what you have is ignorance. You have fear because you don't know. And once you know it, you don't have fear. In Majjhima Nikaya, there is a discourse called Bhaya Bhairava Sutta. Bhaya Bhairava Sutta. In that sutta, Buddha describes his practice in the forest as a bodhisattva. One place Buddha describes, sometimes in the night he sees something moving, something being shaken. And then he says he gets the impression that some kind of a ghost or some kind of demon, because you don't know what moved. But then Buddha says that then he goes to that place and find that, to see that it was not a ghost, it was not a demon, it was an animal. Animal was moving. But in the darkness, you don't see the animal, you only see something is moving, because you don't know what it is. Then fear comes to you, thinking that that must be some kind of inhuman being. Or you go where it is being moved, to see that it is a tree branch or something, some leaves being shaken. So when you go to that place and you find what it is, then of course fear goes. Otherwise what happens is, if you did not go and really check it, then you have fear. You see, from ignorance, fear comes. Pretty simple thing is, you don't know what sun means, you don't know what moon means, so ignorance. And then from ignorance, fear comes. Or in the forest, you don't know what moved, so you think that is inhuman being, but to see that it is an animal. So once you know it, fear goes. Okay. Now this is basic psychology. So in that sense, we can see that primitive religion started with fear, and fear started with ignorance. Psychologically, we can say how religion started originally: ignorance and fear. Ignorance is something related to knowledge, lack of knowledge. Fear is something related to emotions, right? Ignorance means not knowing. So ignorance means not knowing. It's related to knowledge. And then fear is something related to emotions. So you can see knowledge related thing and also emotion related thing. In other words, we can say in the primitive society, religious beliefs started because of ignorance and the fear. So these are the two main things how in the primitive societies religious beliefs started, ignorance and fear. So out of fear they started doing various rites and rituals in order to appease these objects. There is another thing. In addition to ignorance and fear, there is what's called sense of helplessness. Sense of helplessness. Now, ignorance and fear, the other aspect is like at the same time you feel that before these mighty powers, you are helpless. You can't do anything. So that's why your response always, you want to placate them, satisfy them, please them, because you are helpless. Now fire comes, before huge fire, you can't do anything, you are helpless. Sun rises and in some months, no rain, sun is scorching and burning the trees and plants on the earth, and the cultivations are burned. So you have a sense of helplessness. You don't understand, don't know, and also therefore you are helpless. So this sense of helplessness is another very important psychological factor for religions to be arise. Now again look at what science is doing. Now today we understand these things by science. Now for example, if you take lightning Lightning can be very dangerous. If lightning hits you, you die. If lightning hit trees, trees get burned. But today, of course, it will happen even today. But today we know what lightning means. When raining lightning, we don't go out. We know how to protect ourselves. But those days people did not know those things. So they are helpless. You know, this sense of helplessness. So we have three things: ignorance, fear, and also sense of helplessness. Actually, fear comes because we are helpless. So all these three things are interconnected, okay? You cannot separate. People feel helpless, people cannot do anything. So therefore, you ask for favors from gods. Can't do anything. I mean, it's interesting. So this is how the primitive religion started. However, it is also important to see these things still continue. Even today, these things still are there. Although we have scientific knowledge, we know some these things, but still, you know, like in India, you have fire worship. In other places also, we have these things. So, although primitive religion started in that manner, you know, it doesn't mean that primitive religion is gone. We ourselves have primitive religious beliefs. Although we know scientifically certain things to explain, but still. So anyhow, that is the interesting thing, how these things continue today. But originally, how did religion originate is basically out of these three things we can see. You know, people were ignorant, people were scared, and you know, people were helpless. People were helpless. So, you know, you have to rely on other powers. The religion started in that manner, continues even today. That's a different thing. That's another, I mean, different way to understand. We need to understand in different manner. Now, we know that for our examination, we have to study hard. But at the same time, we pray God to pass our examination. Or people go to monasteries to worship pay homage to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha before examination. So you think that, you know, these Buddha Dhamma Sangha can help you, gods can help you. Interestingly, this is not happening in only primitive societies or ordinary societies, even in a country like Japan. Very high in scientific knowledge and everything, but people do these kinds of things. So, you know, interesting thing is, even though these things started with the sense of ignorance, fear and helplessness at a very early period, even in the first part of 21st century we are living now, even now these things exist in the society, even in very developed societies. I am not going to answer the question why these exist in the developed societies. You will have to think about it, but interestingly, in many developed societies, still you find these things, people have this belief. In a way, we can say, even though we are so knowledgeable today, we know so much, but human beings are basically the same helpless, poor human beings before nature or before things. So still we need some kind of help from unknown, you know, the forces. But you know, that's another matter we can discuss later, but I'm not going into detail into this. So, you know, this, the Buddha's view, Bahumve Saranang Yanti, Pabbhatani Vanani, Aramrukha Chetyani, Manusa Bhayatajjita. People are threatened by the fear. Of course, Buddha goes on, if you know Dhammapada, Netan Kho Saranang Kemang, Netan Saranam Uttamang, Netan Saranam Agamma, Sabbadukha Pamuchyati. Buddha says that this is not a great refuge. By going for refuge into trees and monuments, you can't be liberated from samsara. Netan saranamagamma sabbadukha pamuchyati. Then Buddha says, dukkhaṃ dukkha samuppadam, dukkha sachatikkamam, and so on, you know, goes on describing. So look at what the Buddha said there. So Buddha says that this is the reason, reason is the fear, and also we saw that ignorance and helplessness. These are the things that cause primitive religion in the society. Belief in gods, worship of gods, and offering things to the god. So all these things are basically the belief, the fear. And then in the religion started in that manner. One of the key characteristics is actually the belief. You have to believe things because things are not clear to you. You don't know. Because you do not know, you believe that it is so. So the trust or the belief is considered to be in the religions to be something very, very important and very, very powerful. So you have to believe things. Remember when we talk about believe and then on the other hand know, these are two different things. If you know about something, there is nothing to believe. But you have to believe. I'm not talking about there are different senses of belief. Now if I say I believe that you are a good person or bad person, that's a different thing. I'm not talking about that sense. But believe in the sense we think that certain powers beyond our knowledge exist. Okay? Now that is the idea of believing. But if you know something, then when you know, you don't need to believe. But if you don't have knowledge, then you have to have the belief. In this primitive religion, belief was the most important thing. You have to believe. Knowledge was not a factor. Because if people had knowledge, then people will not be scared. I said ignorance is the reason. So, a lot of ignorance, people did not know. So, therefore, people were scared. But then, you have to believe that, certain things, certain unknown things, this aspect. When we discuss Buddhism and, other religions later, we will see, this distinction is very important thing. Because in Buddhism, we don't have much to believe. We have a lot to know. Now, that's why Buddha says, when you go to these objects for refuge, it is not great. But when you go to Buddha Dhamma Sangha and for Dukkha, Dukkha Samuppada, that is not belief, that is knowledge. Okay? So knowledge and belief are two different things here. In the primitive religion, what you did not have was knowledge. So the belief is there, you believe something. In fact, starting from this, we know that different in many gods finally evolved into a monotheism, which I explained to you, believing in one God. But then even in one God, actually, the belief is the central thing. You have to believe that you have to believe God is good, God is right, God is always telling you the right thing. Without that belief you can't do. You remember we talked about this last week, but I will tell you an example. This example is in the Bible, in the Old Testament, there is a book called Isaiah. The book Isaiah, there is an interesting story. That story is about Abraham. Abraham is the first person, the originator of the Judaic tradition. I think I told you that according to Judaism, there is a covenant or agreement between God and Abraham. Okay. Now at one point, Abraham accepts God as the God. But then at one point, God, according to this story, God wants to test Abraham's faith, belief. Whether Abraham is really believing in him, he wants to test. What God asked is, he asked Abraham had his small child, to keep the child on the altar and to, cut his neck, behead him. Can a father do this? Can a father imagine doing it? No. But the moment God says, okay, Abraham, sacrifice your son to me, The story says that God keeps the son and he takes the sword to cut the child into pieces. However, when he raises the sword, God stops it, according to the story. But this story is very interesting because it shows that if God says something that you should do, you do it. No second question. This is the kind of faith or the belief here we are talking about. Now, again, today we can see that in the name of God, people do a lot of killings, right? In the name of God, today also people do a lot of killings. Now, the main reason is this. If you believe that, okay, this is said by God, God is right, and then, you do whatever God says. So, you can see that in the theistic religions, concept of belief or faith is something very, very crucial. So, here you can see, because, you have to believe because you don't know it. If you know it, there is nothing to believe. When we come to Buddhism, we have Saddha and Panya, faith and knowledge, right? So, when a person becomes Arahant, we describe him as Asaddho, a person who doesn't have Saddha. Arahant doesn't have Saddha. So, we have, on the one hand, we have Saddha, and then we have Panya. If you are full of Saddha, then of course you don't have Panya. Sometimes if you are full of Panya, then you don't have Saddha. But in the correct sense, of course, Saddha and Panya, ultimately, when your Panya is developed, your Saddha, you don't need Saddha in the sense to believe. That's why an Arahant who has attained Arahanthood is described as Asaddho. Arahant is described as Asaddho. Asaddho. In the Dhammapada, you have a stanza, Asaddho, Akatanyucha, Sandhichedocha, Yonaro, and so on. Okay? Asaddho means Arahant doesn't have Saddha. Why? Because Arahant knows. When you have no knowledge. But anyhow, I will keep that subject aside for now. So you can see that in the primitive religion how it started. Because of these knowledge related and psychological, emotional reasons, people started worshipping natural objects. Then they ascribed divinity, divineness to these objects, and gods were created. So it is interesting, you can see when you read the Vedic literature, in fact, it is not God created human beings, but human beings created gods for them to worship. Okay? So this is basically how primitive religion started. Okay? Now we will move on. Okay, now what I described up to this point is how historically in the ancient societies what we call religion developed. Okay? Religious beliefs. So gradually there were people who are attending to it. So the priests and all these the groups of people developed. However, then another important thing is look at the origin of the organized religion. Now, how do we understand the origin of organized religion? How do we say that, say, if you take Judaism, Christianity and Islam, or Buddhism and Hinduism, how did these religions start? Now, can we say that these religions start out of fear, out of ignorance? How can we talk about the beginning of organized religion? Up to this point, what I described to you is the beginning of religion in the primitive society. But in the developed society, how did religion start? I gave you this classification of axial religion and non-axial religion. Axial religion means religions that have the concept of liberation, moksha, nirvana. How did that religion start? Now it is interesting to see when you look at this organized religion, either from historical evolution, for example, Hinduism, Judaism, or as a response to already existing religions. Shramana movement in India, including Jainism and Buddhism, that's how. Christianity and Islam in Judeo-Christian tradition. Now, you can see there are two ways how the presently existing developed religion started. Now, one way is from historical evolution. Now, how Hinduism today started in the very ancient times. When you read the Rig Veda, you see the what we discussed earlier, anthropomorphic belief, like as attributing humanness to objects, and then attributed the divineness to objects. So we have so many gods. So you see the Hinduism, what we call Hinduism today, it started in the ancient Indian tradition, gradually starting from polytheism, belief in many gods, to henotheism, to in some manner monotheism, believing in one God. Now in Hinduism you have Vaishnava, who believe in Vishnu as the God, or Shaivism, who believe Shiva as God. So you have these basic categories of religion. So this is an example for historical evolution. Okay? So the certain religions that exist in today started from historical evolution. Now initially, originally in the societies, religion started out of fear and ignorance. However, the evolution of that religion is, you see, in Hinduism and also in Judaism. In fact, this word Hinduism, although we talked about Hinduism, we have to remember that the word Hinduism is something very new. Okay? You can't say during the time of the Buddha, Hinduism was there, okay? Because actually there was no such thing called Hinduism during that time. What happened was, in India, there were all these different beliefs in different gods, and when British colonialized India, you know, they thought that in the entire India there is one religion. So they coined this word Hinduism. Hinduism comes from Hindu. Hindu comes from Indus river. So then finally this word, you have Hinduism. So the idea is that there is one religion in India. But actually that idea is not very correct. It's not like in India one religion. There were many different religious beliefs in India. So when the British considered that, you know, all these things are Hinduism, so today we talk about Hinduism as if one religion. There are certain things shared by all Indian traditions, it's true. But of course, there was not really a one single religious tradition in India like that. Because India is such a huge, vast place. Different areas, people have different beliefs. Now, all these things combined, we use the word today Hinduism. But remember, during the time of the Buddha, Hinduism was not there. If you talk about Hinduism during the time of the Buddha, you have to be very clear that this term is something very new. What did we have during the time of the Buddha? We can use the word Brahmanism, the belief of the Brahmins. But of course, apart from Brahmins' belief, there were many beliefs that ordinary people had, right? They were not even shared by Brahmins. So Brahmins had certain beliefs, but basically in the Buddhist text we are reacting to Brahmanism. Buddha was reacting to Brahmanism. So we can say during the time of the Buddha there was Brahmanism, right? But we can't say during the time of the Buddha there was Hinduism, okay? However, today what we talk as Hinduism, you can say, is something that gradually, historically developed. So today we are talking about the world religion called Hinduism. How did that world religion start? Answer is that world religion started as a result of gradual revolution of so many, the thousands of years. Okay. finally it has come to this level. One example, of course there are many examples. One example is now during the time of the Buddha, Buddhism talks about Mahabrahma. But today do Hindus talk about Mahabrahma? No. Of course, Brahman concept is there in the Veda and the Upanishad. But today you don't find people like Vishnu or Shiva, people don't worship Brahma like that. But during the time of the Buddha, it was Brahma. And then subsequently we had this concept of Trinity or Trimurti in Sanskrit, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. Now today out of that Brahma, people don't worship very much. And then Vishnu, one strong group of Hindus worship Vishnu. Maheshwara, Ishvara is again another god, but he is not worshipped like he was worshipped long time ago. Now you can see that what we call Hinduism itself is an evolution of something. So the Hinduism talks about Mahabrahma, Hinduism talks about Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. Now today in Hinduism we find Vaishnava and Shaiva, Vishnu and Shiva. However, in the presently, Hinduism is not only Vishnu and Shiva. We also have what is called Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta. Now, Advaita Vedanta means they don't believe in any gods. So, actually they believe in Atman, Brahman as a principle. So, Advaita Vedanta is sometimes described as a form of monism. So, Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta, this arises from evolution of Upanishadic philosophy. In the Upanishadic philosophy, ultimately in this particular system, there is no God. So this is not a God-centered religion, but this believes in Atman, Brahman to be the basic, fundamental, universal principle. But that is not a God. So you can see Indian religion starting from natural objects, anthropomorphism, polytheism, henotheism, monotheism to monism. And so all these different stages. So the first belief is, we can say nature worship. And then we can talk about anthropomorphism. I'm not sure about the spelling here. So the nature worship, anthropomorphism, and then we have polytheism, and then this stage of henotheism, and what we call monotheism, and then finally we have monism. So monotheism, we have something like Vaishnava, Shaiva. So this is monotheism. And then monism is Advaita Vedanta. In monism you have the principle of Atman, Brahman. So this is basically how what we call Hinduism today started and evolved. So now I explained to you two things. How religion started in the primitive society, and then out of that how a modern today a religion has gradually evolved up to today what we call Hinduism. Okay? So originally this started as out of fear, out of ignorance, and then gradually developing today. People have believing in Vaishnava, Vishnu, Shiva, Shaivism, and also believing in Atman Brahman principle and then Advaita Vedanta. So this is basically how religion started in the organized sense in India. But this is not the way it has started everywhere. Now, for example, if you take Judaism, in the Christian tradition, Christianity, Islam come from Judaism, okay? Now, how did Judaism start? If you look at history of Judaism, I think I already somewhat explained to you. Judaism is basically a religion that started what they believe to be the covenant or agreement between God and Abraham. So we use the word C-O-V-E, covenant, which means agreement. Agreement between God and Abraham. Abraham is the pioneer, the first person in the Judaic tradition who represented Jew people. So this is why, you know, the God promised to protect Jews. So this particular belief that chosen people, the concept of chosen people, Jews as chosen people, chosen by God. So Jews believe that only Jew people go to heaven. Okay, others don't go to heaven. Only Jew people go to heaven because this agreement is only between Jew people and the God. So now Judaism as a religion started from this belief. God as a savior, the concept of God as a savior comes from there. So Judaism started as a historical revolution. So Hinduism started as evolved as a historical, response and historical revolution. So those are two different religions. But what about Buddhism? How did Buddhism start? Now, if you take Buddhism to be a religion, how did Buddhism start? Now, when we look at the history, how Buddhism started, how Judaism, how Christianity started, how Islam started, is interesting. Now, Buddhism started in India as one of the Shravana traditions. Buddhism is one of the Shravana traditions. Now, who are the Shravanas? Why Shravanas? Now, basically, Shravanas were those who were against Brahmins. That was their common characteristics, okay? Their common characteristics was they did not approve Brahmanism. They were against Brahmanism. They reject Brahmanism. They reject the Brahmanic social philosophy. They reject the caste system, Varna Dharma. So that was the common characteristic of all the Shravanas. However, within the Shravana groups, last time I referred to 6 religious teachers during the time of the Buddha, right? Purana Kassapa, Phaguda Kacchana, Makkali Gosal and so on. There were 6 religious teachers. All were Shravanas. But different Shravana groups. All the Shravana groups were together in rejecting Brahmanism. But of course, among themselves, different Shravana groups were different from each other. Now, if you look at the Buddha, what do you think the Buddha's religion would have been in his household life? Most possibly Buddha was a Hindu, right? Although we use the word Hinduism, it's a new thing, but they followed the traditional religion, right? So that was a religion that was in India during the time of the Buddha. Now, if Buddha was satisfied with Brahmanism, if Buddha was okay with Brahmanism, do you think that Buddhism will arise? No. So the main reason you can see that the second stage, certain religions have started as a response to or reaction to the existing religion. So this is the second one. So if you look at the organized religion started, number one is by gradual historical evolution. Number 2 is as a response or reaction to existing religion. By gradual historical evolution, Hinduism, Judaism. However, if you look at Buddhism as a response or reaction to the existing religion, as a reaction or response to the existing religion. Now, if Buddha was satisfied with Hinduism or Brahmanism, Buddha will not become a Shramana, right? There was no need for him to become a Shramana. Now, Buddha was not satisfied with Brahmanism. Buddha wanted to find a way to end suffering. He did not find, he can do that in Brahmanic religious system. So what he did was, he joined the Shramana tradition. And then when he realized the truth, then the organization he started subsequently became known as Samana Sakya Puttya. So during the time of the Buddha, there is no something called Buddhism, okay? But there was a different religious leader as Buddha and his followers. But in ancient India, there were many different religious traditions, religious teachers and followers. But today we don't find all these, we don't have Makkali Gosala's religion, we don't have Purana Kassapa's religion, we don't have Ajita Kesakambala's religion. But what we have is from ancient time, only Jainism and Buddhism. But then during the time of the Buddha, we can see that there were so many religious teachers with their followers. So we can't say that those were different religions really. All those were different Shramana groups. All the Shramana groups hit the road when they were hungry in the daytime to get some pindapata from people. So they were common, they were like, they were very much similar. So ordinary Indian people, I don't think they really had a problem, any Shramana, they would give pindapata. You remember in the Vasala Sutta, Buddha says, Yo Brahmanangva, Samanangva, Bhatta Kale Upattite, Proseti, Vacha Nachadeti, Chanjanya Vasaloiti. What is the meaning of that? If a Shramana or Brahmana comes at a meal time, if somebody doesn't give him a meal but chases him away with bad word, he is a Vasala. Now was Buddha talking about the Buddhist monks? No. He was talking about any Shramana or Brahmana, any religious person, okay? So we cannot talk about religions in today's sense during the time of the Buddha. But gradually from those traditions, religious traditions evolved, and today out of those things, there may have been so many Shramana traditions during the time of the Buddha. We have only mainly two, Jainism and Buddhism. But if you look at Brahmajala Sutra, there are 62 views. These 62 views may have been held by 62 different groups of people. But do we have those religious groups today? No, we don't have them. But we do have the Buddhism and Jainism. But if you look at both Buddhism and Jainism, if Buddha was satisfied with Brahmanism, Buddhism will not arise. If Jaina Mahavira, Nikantanataputta was happy with Brahmanism, Jainism will not be there. So you can see both Buddhism and Jainism, you can say, started rejecting Brahmanism. It started because they rejected Brahmanism. If they were happy with Brahmanism, no Buddhism. If Siddhartha was happy with Brahmanism, no religion. If Jaina Mahavira was happy with Brahmanism, no Jaina religion. So you can see that some organized religions that exist today started as a reaction or response, rejection of the old religion. Now, you can understand Christianity and Islam in the same way. Now, if you look at Christianity, now Jesus Christ, I think I told you this other day also, Jesus Christ was a Jew. He was born into a Jewish family. Not only that, later he became what is called Jewish rabbi Rabbi, R-A-B-I. Rabbi means Jewish religious person. So Jesus was a Jew. But what happened was Jesus did not like the Judaism existed up to that point. He talks about God as his father, Abba. That's the Jewish word he is using, as his father. So what he said was, what is practiced by Jews by that time was not good for his father, God. And also Jesus did not believe that God is only for Jew people. Now the meaning of this word, we are using this word Catholic. What is the meaning of this word, Catholic? Catholicism. Catholic means common, universal. So Jesus wanted to show that salvation of God is Catholic. That means salvation of God is for everybody. Now Jewish people said that they are the chosen people. So according to their belief, only they go to heaven and not to others. So salvation is only for Jewish people. But Jesus said that no, salvation is God is for everybody. Now you see there is a very, very huge difference between, in that sense, Judaism and Christianity. But remember, both religions believe in the same God. Both religions. But then Jewish people thought that, this Jesus is crazy, gone off his head. So, finally they crucified him and killed him. But suppose Jesus was a good Jew, you think Christianity will start? No. There is no reason, because he would have been born a Jew and he would have died a Jew. End of the story. There is no Christianity. So you can see that Christianity started because Jesus was not satisfied with his own religion. Like Buddhism started because Buddha was not satisfied with Brahmanism. Jesus was not satisfied with Judaism. That is how Christianity started. So Christianity is a response. Okay. However, now when we look at the Islam, we can see that Islam is really a response to Christianity. Okay. Now, if people accepted Christianity, Islam will not be there. Now, if you look at Islam, you can see that the very important difference is in Christianity, you have this concept of Trinity. Trinity means concept of Trinity means the concept of God has been understood as consisting three different aspects, or involving three different, we would say, personalities, Trinity. So the concept of Trinity, so in a sense, Father, Son and Holy Ghost. So this is called Trinity. Now Father, Son. Father is the God who created, Son is Jesus, and Holy Ghost is not really a person according to this understanding, but the whole God Spirit, impersonal thing. So anyhow, in the Christian tradition, God is three. God has three aspects. Now in Judaism, the concept is God is only one. Now when we look at the term monotheism, monotheism means only one God. However, if you look at only one God and then Trinity, three aspects of God, this was considered to be a violation of monotheism. If God is only one, how can he have three? So the Christian concept is something like three in one God. But this concept was not accepted. So Christianity was considered to be dilution of, watering of distorting the concept of God. In fact, Islam is really again reaffirming the monotheism. Of course, in Islam, the God is called Allah. But if you look at Holy Quran, Islamic religious book. How many of you have seen it? Anybody who has read it? Yes. Come on, in this country you have so many Muslims, right? In the world there are so many Muslims. Or get to the library the Quran and you must read it. Okay? Particularly because even if we don't have Islam in this country, we should read it. But particularly in this country you have Quran. So you should know what the Islamic people believe. Do you have read the Bible? Anybody, some parts? Okay, okay. Actually, Bible in English is a very beautiful reading. I'm sure Bible must have been translated into Burmese. But if you can read it in English, it's even better. Now, you must read, because among our Buddhist students, we think that reading Quran, reading Bible is, not very good. No, nothing like that. By reading Quran or reading Bible, you are not going to become Muslim or Christian. But in order to understand what they believe, you have to read. Now, if you read Quran, what I want to tell you is, if you read Quran, practically every paragraph in Quran ends with asserting that Allah is the God and Allah is the only one God. Now in the Muslim mosque, what you hear, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar means God is great. So God is one God. Now you see something very interesting. Judaism asserting one God, Christianity coming into three aspects of God. Now Islam again affirming oneness of God. So actually Islam in a way is going back to Judaism. Okay? Because now if you look at Quran, in Quran Jesus is a saint. Jesus' mother Mary is also saint. So they are mentioned, they are in the same tradition. But of course, although Jesus is saint, but Jesus is not son of God. According to Islamic belief, according to Judaic belief, a God cannot have son. Okay, God cannot produce other gods. God is one. That's the idea. So you can see, originally Judaism started from historical evolution. Christianity started as a response to Judaism. And Islam started as a response to Christianity. So you see the two ways of how religion started. Initially, originally in the primitive society, religion started out of fear, ignorance, helplessness. Right. And then when we come to organized religion today, in the today's organized religion, certain religions started as a result of historical evolution. Hinduism and Judaism. And then certain other religions started as a response to existing religion. So Buddhism started as a response to existing Brahmanism. Jainism started as a response to existing Brahmanism. Christianity started as a response to existing Judaism, and Islam started as a response to, and even more modern, later religions like Sikhism. You can see combination of Hinduism and Islam. Baha'ism, combination of, again, several religions. So anyway, we are not going to discuss all the religions in the world, but if we take the main religions. Okay, what I have been telling you is today how religion started. Okay, so far we discussed certain aspects of religion, characteristics, how religion started. So on the one hand, we can talk about it, how primitive religion started in primitive society, and also how the developed religion started in the developed sense. In other sense, what we would like to call axial religion, religion that considered to be the salvation. So all the monotheistic religions, salvation through God. And then Jainism, Buddhism, Advaita Vedanta, salvation is not through God, salvation through your own effort. Right? So this is basically the difference. I think I would wind up from here, and then we will continue from from there for the next discussion. So if you have any questions or anything to clarify in the discussion so far, you can ask questions. Okay. Yes, sir.
The question is, you say the word know and the word believe are different.
Say it again. The word believe and know. Yeah. Know and believe. Yeah.
If so, we believe the Buddha, we worship the Buddha because of believing, and we worship the Buddha because of knowing.
Okay.
We must know the difference between them.
Okay, thank you, Venerable, thank you. In fact, when we use the word believe, in English word belief has several senses, okay? Now, for us to say the belief in a certain sense, it doesn't necessarily mean that something we believe in, something we do not know, okay? But it could mean something somewhat different. But so there are more than one meaning for this word. But basically when we say belief or believe as an act or belief as a noun, what it means is in religious traditions we believe in certain things we have not experienced. Things we don't know in any other manner. For example, if you say that God exists, you don't know. Then you believe that exists, right? No reason, only your belief. Maybe your religion says, maybe your parents say God exists, so you believe. But have you seen? No. Now this is the belief we are talking in religion. But on the other hand, the word belief has some epistemological sense. Like when you say we believe in the Buddha, actually Buddha was a historical person, right? We know that Buddha lived in India. So there is nothing to believe about it. But in that sense, like believing in God. But on the other hand, we can use the word belief in a more epistemological, knowledge-related sense. Okay. So this is the difference. Now, if you take Saddha and Panya in Buddhism, Saddha is something we believe. Panya is something we know. Now, for example, imagine this, when you are practicing the path, Buddha says that if you follow this path, you can attain nirvana. But when you start, have you seen nirvana? Have you realized nirvana? No. Why do you follow Buddha? I mean, during the time of the Buddha, you know that Buddha did not have Buddhists, right? So all the people who came to Buddha were new people. So they accepted what the Buddha said and then gave up their life and became monks and started practicing. But if what the Buddha said is wrong, then their life will be in vain. But you know, so there is what is called Saddha. But in Buddhism, Saddha is always, according to the Buddha, Akaravati Saddha. What is Akaravati Saddha? Have you heard that word? There are two forms of Saddha. Amulika Saddha, Akaravati Saddha. I will explain it later someday, but basically Akaravati Saddha is you rationally believe something. Because you have to believe certain things rationally, otherwise you can't live. So to believe to that extent is okay. For example, you go to a restaurant, you order a cup of tea. You have to trust that person, otherwise how can you drink? If you have no belief, no trust, their trust, you will not drink the cup of tea because you can put poison, he can put poison. But your trust, right? So, you know, that type of thing is needed in our life. So the difference is, in religion, even in Buddhism, we follow certain things out of trust or belief, but of course that has to be rational belief. Now, say for example, when you become the follower of the Buddha and follow it, how do you know that nirvana is true? But then there are other monks, other arahants. You can see, although you have not got it, there are other people who have got it. So you can believe, but your belief is very rational. Right? The monk Sangha will say that, okay, we have realized it. Then you follow Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. The Buddha teaching and the Sangha. Why Sangha? Because when you want to follow the path, examples are the Sangha. Okay? So Reverend, this word has several different meanings. Now basically in religions, we have to really believe without much of a evidence. Now in the Abraham's story, when God says that kill your child for me. Now Abraham thinks that God is right. That is some kind of, the faith, belief. So in other words, there is to belief, rational belief, Akarvati Saddha, and also Amulika Saddha, baseless belief. So what Buddhism rejects is the baseless belief. But to some point, we have to have rational belief. However, basically, difference between knowledge and belief is when we say we believe something, we have not 100% evidence. But when you say no, it's a different thing, right? I mean, it's something like that. I can say that I have something in mind. Then you believe me because I have not told you any lies. But you don't know. But when I do this, yes, now you know it. There's nothing to believe. Right? So it's the same thing. I can say in your pocket you have some chats, but I don't know, but I believe, right? But you open it and see, then of course there is some money, then it becomes knowledge. So the difference between knowing and believing, that type of thing. But in religion, as I said, there is some element in any religion, you have to go by belief. But in Buddhism, Buddha says that, okay, you have to believe it, but you have to believe it for good reasons. Okay. Yes, yeah.
Last week, there was this visual lesson about what's a religion. You said God created the human being, but human beings are the only create the God. In that case, how does human beings create the God?
Okay, yeah, what I meant by that is like God-centered religions say that God created human beings. But when you look at Rig Veda, you can see that human beings are creating the concept of God. It's not like you can create gods, but the ideas of gods, different names for gods, all these were done by human beings. Now when we say Brahma, who gave that word, when we say Varuna or Vishnu, Shiva, who gave these names? These names coming from heaven or something? No. Human beings, we gave the names. We said that, okay, God is like this. So actually, that is how human beings created God. And also, even you take the monotheistic concept of Christian, Judaic concept of God. God as all-knowing, all-powerful. All these powers we attribute to what we believe to be God. So, when I said that it is not that God created world, but human being created God, what I meant is the concept, ideas about God were created by human beings. Not like we can't create God, like nobody can create God. Of course, God doesn't exist anyway according to Buddhism. So if God doesn't exist, you can't create. But you can create the idea. You can create the word. So that's what we have done. That's what the Indians do. Okay. Now, fire is natural, but Indians considered it to be God. So you can say Indians created the fire god. Right? Like that. Okay, Venerable, then thank you very much. We will wind up from here for today, and we will meet again for the continued discussion. So thank you very much.